Good morning, this is your Math Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is a video for the test review. This will be the third one, and it'll cover problems 10 through 14, which are inequalities. All right, we have some limitations with Desmos because we can't do inequalities on Desmos. However, we can use Desmos to help us out anyway. Well, we need it to be, I'm going to rewrite this so that it'll go into Desmos, which will be 3 minus 2, parentheses. It already had an n, so that's good. But we're going to have to replace the inequality with a squiggle, -1. So we'll pop that into Desmos real quickly. Oops, 3 minus 2, parenthesis, n minus. So in this case, I get n equals 6. Well, we know it's not an equal, but we're going to go ahead and write 6 when we write this down. So we're going to go ahead and stop the share. So here's what we know. We know it's 6. We just don't know if it's less than, greater than, or whatever. Now, we also know that this doesn't have a line, so this means it's going to be a hollow. So we're going to have a hollow here at 6, but I don't know which direction to draw my arrow. So we're now going to have to go back and solve this thing. Well, obviously I have parentheses, so I'm going to have to distribute. So I'm going to distribute this -2. Here, I'll do it over here because I have a little more room. There's missing a 1, but I'm distributing that -2 like that. So this becomes 3 minus 2n. 2 times 4 is 8, which is, and then a negative times a negative is a positive, equals -1. I can combine like terms. I can combine the 3 and the 8, and that becomes 11 minus 2n equals -1. I need to move my constants away from my variable. So this is -11 by doing the opposite operation or inverse. So now I have -2n. Oh, this is not equal. This is a greater than symbol. Sorry about that, guys. All right, because all I'm doing is copying that down. And -1 and -12, 11 gives me -12. Okay, so I need to divide both sides by -2. When I do that, I get 6, but my sign flips. So it's going to be facing this way. So I'm going to be graphing it this way, and it's going off to -infinity. So my answer is n is less than 6. Okay, and while Desmos doesn't give you the graph, it tells you at least where the point's going to be. So let's try that again. Okay, next problem. So we're going to have to write this as 7 less than a negative, parenthesis, -n minus 3 plus 2. So we can't use the less than symbol on Desmos, so we'll have to use the squiggle right here. Let's try that out. See what we get for our point. So 7, squiggle, negative, parenthesis, -n minus 3 plus 2. Make sure I have that in there right. All right, so when I did that, it tells me it's 2. So we know we have a point at 2. We can stop the share. So I'm going to go ahead and write 2 just so we don't forget about it. All right, we know that that's what we're looking for. And we know that this doesn't have a line underneath it, so we're going to have a hollow at 2. But what we don't know is which way to draw the line, and we also have to show our work to solve it. So can't do anything here on this side, but I can distribute this negative across. When I do that, that becomes a plus n and a plus 3 plus 2. I can combine the 3 and the 2. So I have 7 is less than n plus 5. I can subtract 5 from both sides. And 2 less than n. Now, we never want to graph it like this way. We always want the variables on the left, which means we need to swap the order. So this is going to be n is greater than 2. That means I'm going to have to draw my arrow in this direction, and it's going off to positive infinity. All right? Always, always, always end up with your variables on the left. Otherwise, it's really hard to graph correctly. Okay, so if you draw the graph the other way, it's wrong. Okay? All right, moving on to number 12. Wow, that's a lot of ugliness. So we're going to rewrite this thing. N plus 1 plus 1 plus 6n. We're going to use the squiggle. 3 parentheses n minus 4 minus n minus 4. That's a whole lot of ugly. So let's go ahead and plug that into Desmos and go ahead and get our point location. And take me forever to just type this in. No wonder you guys complain about homework. N plus 1 plus 6n, oops, plus 6n, squiggle, 3 parentheses, n minus 4 parentheses, minus n minus 4, close parentheses. Oops, didn't open those parentheses. There we go. So I ended up getting n is negative 2. Let me check this. X plus 1, 1, 1, 6n, 3 parentheses, n minus 4 minus n minus. I like that. That looks good. So negative 2. All right. So we got negative 2. I'm going to mark this down. We also know that we have when I look at this, I have a line underneath. And because I have a line underneath, I have a solid. That means at negative 2, I have a solid. I just don't know the direction of this yet. So let's go ahead and solve this thing. So first off, distributed property. So we have n plus 1 plus 1 plus 6n. This is our inequality. We're going to distribute this across, and this becomes 3n minus 12. And we're going to distribute the negative, which means that just changes the signs. So minus n plus 4. Well, wouldn't you know, we have a ton of like terms. Don't forget there's a 1 here. So 1n plus 6n is 7n. So this goes away, and 1 plus 1 is 2. I can combine the 3n, and I need a 1 here. So 3n minus 1 and is 2n. Negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. All right, now I need to move variables to the same side. So this, and then I always want them on the left, especially for inequality. So I need to move this 2n. It doesn't show it, but this is technically a positive 2n. So I need to do the opposite, which is subtract 2n. So now I have 5n plus 2 is less than negative 8. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides because I need to move my constant away from my variable. And now I have 5n is less than or equal to negative 10. Divide both sides by 5. N and negative 2. Now here, I'm dividing by a positive. If I'm dividing by a positive, I don't flip the sign. So this way, it's going to be 1n is less than negative 2, or n is less than or equal to negative 2. And we know our arrow is going this way all the way to negative infinity. All right, moving on to number 13. Once again, we're going to rewrite it so that it'll go into Desmos. And we have 20 minus 2n greater than negative 2 times n plus 2 plus 4p, or 4n, excuse me, 4n. Now we can't use the inequality sign. We have to use the squiggle for Desmos. Okay? So switching back over to Desmos. Twenty minus 2n. All right, when we do that, we get 6. So I'm going to mark 6 off on my paper to remind me. Stop the share. So we got 6. And so I've recorded the 6 right here. Should do it in red. Okay. Now, we don't have a line underneath, so we have a hollow, and we know we have a hollow here at 6, but we don't know the direction to draw the graph for the graph, and we need to show our work to solve it. So we have parentheses, so we know we have distributive property. Essentially, there's a 1 here, so we'll have to distribute this negative 2 across that. So we have 20 minus 2n, copy the sign, greater than. Distributing, this is negative 2n. 2 times 2 is 4, so minus 4 plus 4n. All right, we want to combine like terms. Nothing to combine on this side, so we can just copy it down. So 20 minus 2n. Here I can combine the negative 2 and the positive 4, and that gives me 2n minus 4. All right, we need to get the variables on the same side, and we always want the variables on the left, which means I need to subtract 2n. That goes away, and now I have 20 minus 4n greater than negative 4. I need to move my constant, so this 20 needs to move to the other side. This is essentially a positive 20. So I need to do a minus 20 on that side. So I end up with negative 4n is greater than negative 24. Now I need to divide. Now we have to be careful here. First off, we're dividing, so we get 1n, and this is 6, 24 divided by 4. And by the way, I'm dividing because essentially this is multiply, and we undo multiplication by division. But I divided by a negative. Anytime you divide by negative, you flip the sign. So our inequality is facing to the left. So we're going to graph it this way. It's going to negative infinity, and we have n is less than 6 for our answer. Okay, moving on to the very last problem. We're going to replace the x's with n's and inequality with a squiggle in order to put it into Desmos. So we have 5n minus parenthesis n plus 2 squiggle negative 5 1 plus n plus 3. So there we have it. We'll go ahead and swap over. So 5n minus shift All right, make sure I have that right. 5n minus n plus 2, negative 5, 1 plus n plus 3, and we got 0. All right, so I'm going to write down 0 to remind myself that that's what it is. And we're going to stop this and get back to work. So for this one, we have a greater than or equal to sign. So we have a line underneath. So at 0, we know we have a solid because we have a line underneath, but we don't know the direction until we actually work the problem out. So we're going to have to work the problem out. And we're going to have 5n. This is just switches the sign. So this is negative 1n minus 2 greater than or equal to. So I distributed this to get that. Now I have to distribute to negative 5. This becomes negative 5 minus 5n plus 3. Combine like terms. On this side, I can combine the n's. So I end up with 4n minus 2 greater than or equal to. I can combine the negative 5 and 3, and I end up with negative 2 minus 5n. All right. We need to get the variables on the left-hand side, so we're going to add 5n to both sides. So this becomes 9n minus 2 greater than or equal to negative 2. The opposite, we need to move the constant away from the variable, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I have 9n greater than or equal to 0. Divide both sides by 9. N is greater than or equal to 0. I divided, but I'm dividing by positive, so I don't flip the sign. So my arrow is going off to positive infinity, and I have n is greater than or equal to 0. All right, I hope this helps. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.